They was sitting on the other side of the room.
So offer with a way better proposition for you.
Well, Big Meech's party ended up being an absolute disaster, and at this point, it's impossible to pretend otherwise. What really pushed this situation into the open was Dogface TV's interviews with several women who were actually there. These weren't random internet takes or secondhand stories. These were first-hand accounts from people who experienced the event in real time. We even played a clip from Miami Tip, who has been a well-known and respected female entertainer in Miami for years. When someone with her history and credibility tells the same story everyone else is telling, it adds serious weight to the claims. According to her and multiple other women, there was no money, poor organization, and a general sense that the event was chaotic and poorly handled. A lot of the women were openly frustrated, and their complaints all pointed in the same direction. What made this situation even more embarrassing was 50 Cent reposting Dogface TV's interview with one of the women from the party. That alone tells you this wasn't just internet chatter. When 50 reposts something like that, it's a clear signal that there's truth behind it and that he wants people to see it. I'll only play a short clip here, but you really need to go to Dogface TV's page and watch the full interview. He reportedly has a 4-part interview with this woman, and the deeper you go into it, the worse the situation looks. What's hard to understand is how badly Big Meech fumbled this moment. If you look at the clip circulating online, you can clearly see Big Meech's name at the top, so at that point there's no escaping responsibility. The credibility is gone, completely gone. This was supposed to be a triumphant homecoming, a redemption arc, and instead, it's turning into one of the biggest comeback failures we've seen in recent history. It's honestly shocking how poorly this was handled.
It was weird. They was sitting on the other side of the room. So when Meech came, he was the second booth there. So at this point, it's him and some New York niggas. So then the DJ was like, I need my New York niggas to move close. Just move all them niggas. It was like 10 of them.
At this point, everything just circles back to the same conclusion. There was no money, no structure, no payout, no real execution. It was a complete wash. What makes it even more confusing is the involvement of the guy who owns the 24 Club franchise. This isn't some random operator. He owns multiple successful clubs and knows how nightlife is supposed to work. That's why it's hard to understand why Big Meech's name was even attached to this situation. Maybe there was a personal obligation, maybe money was owed, maybe there was history there, who knows? But whatever the reason was, it clearly backfired. It's honestly a shame because this is not how anyone imagined Big Meech coming home. People expected something organized, powerful, and symbolic. Instead, what we're watching is Dogface TV steadily keeping the pressure on him, interview after interview, story after story, not letting the narrative slide. And that pressure matters, especially when you realize Dogface is someone that people in Meech's circle, including Blue Da Vinci, are paying attention to. That alone tells you this isn't just internet noise. It's being watched by the people closest to the situation. Switching gears for a second, 50 Cent popping up in a DoorDash commercial is actually a smart move. From the looks of it, this is probably part of the Super Bowl rollout, since brands always start pushing those commercials early. Love him or hate him, 50 understands branding and timing better than most, and he's always positioned to win, whether it's music, TV, or commercials. Now, on a more serious note, things are looking bad for Javvante Davis. A Baltimore judge has issued a warrant after he allegedly violated probation following his Miami arrest. At this point, it's just frustrating to watch. The talent is undeniable, but the decision-making is consistently terrible. Putting hands on women, moving reckless, acting wild in public, it's like he's doing everything possible to sabotage himself. This was supposed to be the next boxing legend, someone carrying the torch, and instead it feels like we're watching a slow-motion crash. At some point, you can't blame anyone else. He has to get it together before it's too late. And then you got the sideshow moments that just add to the chaos. Choppa declining Blueface's offer to fight makes sense because that whole situation is messy to begin with. Blueface stays disrespectful, especially when it comes to anything involving Christian Rock, and it's never really about competition, it's about attention. That kind of energy doesn't elevate anyone, it just keeps things stuck in nonsense. All of this just feels like another reminder of how quickly things can fall apart when discipline disappears. Talent, fame, money, it all means nothing if people can't get out of their own way.
So offer with a way better proposition for you. You feel me? Because we know you owe $23 million to that club.
Now this guy really thinks he's some kind of super gangster. The crazy part is, musically speaking, he's actually more popular than Blueface right now. But the issue is that his whole personality feels scattered. The best way I can describe it is that he seems like 5 different people trapped in one body. One day he's presenting himself as some kind of spiritual healer. The next day he's channeling Tupac. Then suddenly he's claiming to be a hardcore Memphis gangster. At one point he was talking like a pimp too. It's like he wakes up every morning and picks a new character to play instead of just being himself. And while all that role playing is going on, there are real life issues he's running from. You still owe over $100,000 to Soulja Boy's baby mother, and now your plan is to bait someone into fighting you so you can use that payday to clean up your mess? That's clearly the angle here. And honestly, I get it from a hustle perspective, but that's exactly why the answer is no. I'm not about to help you pay off your debt by giving you a fight. What makes it worse is the way he starts talking reckless, dragging kids into it, trying to sound edgy and intimidating. That's where it really falls apart. You can hear him forcing this tough guy cadence, trying to imitate artists like Finesse 2 Times, but it doesn't land because it's not authentic. It sounds rehearsed, like cosplay street talk. And yeah, they're both from Memphis, but let's be real. People know the difference between someone who's really lived that life and someone who's just borrowing the image. This dude is soft. He might be able to box, sure, but street credibility? That's not him. He's not built like that, and that's okay. Not everyone has to be from the streets. Being a good guy isn't a weakness, but pretending to be something you're not definitely is. Maybe he should just go back to bending spoons with his mind or whatever phase he was in before. Then the conversation jumps to something way darker. There are resurfacing accusations involving Diddy, including claims from an escort dating back to 2012. The man, named Otis, alleges that he was drugged and assaulted in a hotel room and later threatened into silence. Those are extremely serious accusations, and while they haven't been proven in court, the details being described are disturbing. If even a fraction of that is true, it paints a very ugly picture. At the same time, these are claims that require solid evidence, not just shock value, because the implications are massive. Switching the energy again, Harlem is clearly having a moment. A$AP Rocky, A$AP Ferg, Max B's presence, and Fergie Baby are all part of what feels like a Harlem renaissance. The song Good Day to Be in Harlem is actually solid. At first it was confusing whether Max B was on the track or just appearing in the visuals, but regardless, the energy is there. The remix rollout caused some confusion too, since the original version had already been out for a while. That explains why the numbers weren't as high as expected. People assumed it was older. Still, it's a strong record and deserves way more plays. If Fergie Baby is independent, that also explains the slower momentum, but quality-wise, the song is there. People should definitely tap in. Finally, Deontay Wilder coming out now and claiming Tyson Fury cheated in 2 out of their 3 fights feels like a reach. He says he has proof and that a documentary will expose everything, but at this point it sounds more like frustration than facts. Those fights are already part of boxing history, and unless there's undeniable evidence, this just comes off as reopening old wounds. Sometimes you have to take the loss, learn from it, and move on, instead of rewriting the past. All in all, this whole lineup of stories shows the same pattern: image versus reality. Whether it's fake toughness, wasted talent, serious allegations, or misunderstood success, everything eventually comes down to authenticity. You can't fake consistency, and you definitely can't fake character. This whole stretch of conversation really feels like a snapshot of how messy and unpredictable the culture can be right now, because nothing is ever just one story anymore. You start with the disappointment around Big Meech coming home and the realization that there wasn't any real money or structure behind some of these club ventures, which makes the situation feel even more unfortunate given the expectations people had. This frustration with how certain figures keep pressure on him publicly, almost feeding the narrative instead of letting the moment settle. Then the conversation jumps to 50 Cent securing a DoorDash commercial, likely tied to the Super Bowl rollout, which is a reminder of how some people continue to level up in corporate spaces, while others struggle to get their feeding together. From there, it gets even darker with news about Javvante Davis facing a warrant for a probation violation after his Miami arrest, and it's hard not to feel disappointment because the talent is clearly there, yet the repeated self-destructive behavior keeps overshadowing everything. That same pattern of confusion and contradiction shows up again when discussing rappers who seem to play multiple roles at once, switching identities depending on the moment, whether it's gangster, healer, street figure, or provocateur, which makes their public image feel inauthentic and performative. The back and forth about declining fights, unpaid debts, and reckless trash talk only reinforces how far some of these situations have drifted from logic or responsibility. On top of that, there are heavy allegations resurfacing about Diddy from years ago, which adds another uncomfortable layer to the conversation, reminding everyone how unresolved accusations can linger and resurface when the climate changes. Shifting gears slightly, the Harlem music conversation brings a more cultural angle, with talk about Fergie Baby, ASAP Ferg, Max B, and the idea of a Harlem Renaissance, even though the numbers don't yet match the hype, showing how perception and reality don't always line up in the streaming era. The confusion around whether songs are new, remixed, or just newly promoted also highlights how oversaturated the music landscape has become. Finally, the discussion circles back to industry interviews, particularly Hernandez Govin's appearance on the Lionel B Show, where claims about Yo Gotti and a supposedly bulletproof Rolls-Royce spark skepticism due to the lack of concrete evidence, despite ongoing tensions between camps. The episode wraps up with brief takes on Travis Scott's controversial lyrics and the general sense that there isn't much major news at the moment, but when there is, it's always layered, messy, and worth breaking down, which is why these conversations keep happening in the first place.